Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. So today gonna be your second last lecture. Okay, second last topic for this semester. Alright. So for today's topic, we are going to study about the animal rights and welfare. Okay. But before that, let me present my slide. Okay. Okay, I hope all of you can see my slide. Alright, so as I mentioned earlier, so this topic is going to be your second last topic for this semester. So our last topic will be on this coming Thursday, right? Which is the title of animal management. Okay. So for today is we are going to study about the animal rights and welfare. Okay, so without before we go further into this topic, so we need to learn and we need to know several terms that we are going to use throughout this topic. All right. So the first one is regarding the animal rights. So the animal rights is actually refers to the positions that animals should not be exploited. While for the animal right, it is actually refers to the position that animals should be treated humanly, right? And the third one is actually the confinement system. So this confinement system is refers to the animals are confined to cages or pens in partially enclosed or totally enclosed buildings, so that production improve through closer control of the environment. So the terms that you need to know is actually the eco-terrorism. So terrorism or crimes committed under the disguise of saving nature. The other one is actually factory farming. So factory farming is actually practice of keeping chickens in cages and veal calf in small crates. Okay, and the other terms is actually humanized. So humanized is to believe that animals have the same rights as humans and to treat them as humans. Okay. So the other term is actually intensive operations. So farming operation in which the farmer or manager tries to increase output through better breeding, feeding and management. And the speciesism. So the speciesism is believed that any use of animals by humans reflects a bias or that humans are superior to animals. And the other term is unethical. So the unethical is a belief that something is going against one's moral principles and values. Okay, and the other two last terms that you need to know is actually anthropomorphism. So this anthropomorphism is the attribution of human traits, emotions, or intentions to non-human entities. And the other one is the vivisection. So vivisection is actually a research that consists of surgical operations and experiments in order to study the structure and functions of organs. Okay, so this is all the terms that you need to know. Okay, for this topic and also for our last topics next class. Okay, so as a background, okay, so the formal scientific study of animal welfare, it is actually began for about 50 years ago. All right, and the discipline as a whole is known as animal welfare science. But however, the questions of whether animals are suffering and what to do about it had mattered to people around the world for thousands of the years. Okay, so there is a common criticisms of this concern that has been used that animals does have feelings as we do. Okay, so which means the animals they don't have they don't have feelings as the human do. All right, and people who worry about animals may simply be attributing humans' feelings to animals. So the attributions of human feelings to animals is called the anthropomorphisms. Okay. So there is a questions here, which is this just the anthropomorphisms, which is the attributing the attributing human characteristic to animals? So actually the answer is no. Okay, because a human and many other species are sentient. Okay, so what is the sentient is about? Okay, so sentient is actually being one that has some ability, which is the ability to evaluate and also the actions of others in relations to itself and the third parties. Okay, and also to remember some of its own actions and their consequences, to assess risk, to have some feelings, and to have some degrees of awareness. So this is the definitions regarding the sentience by Broom 2006. Okay, so the sentience also can be referred to the feeling that matter to the individuals. Okay, by Webster 2011. And also sentience also can be referred to consciousness of feelings. Okay, for example, painful, pleasant. Okay, for example, not this the feeling is not the same as the self or consciousness. Okay, so there is also a clear scientific evidence that proving all the vertebrates and also some invertebrates are sentient. So the research into invertebrate sentience is actually continually advancing. Okay, and humans, okay, we are actually learning of sentience and a new capacities of invertebrate species every day. Okay, so our understanding, okay, of sentence is still developing. Okay, which is many species we now think are not sentient, maybe actually be sentient, okay, and therefore able to suffer. Okay, for example, there is some sort of preliminary evidence that prawns also can be considered as a sentence. Okay, so sentient animals is actually refers to all vertebrates and also some invertebrates. Okay, which is including the squid, octopus, and possibly some crustaceans. Okay, and still regarding the sentience, so sentient is actually the capacity to experience suffering and pleasure. Okay, which is animals can feel. Okay, as same as humans. So it implies a level of conscious awareness. So animal sentience is the fact that animals can feel pain. Okay, so animals also can suffer, but also experience in many positive emotions such as joy and also pleasure. Okay, so there are many studies. Okay, some studies have shown that many animals can experience complex emotions. Okay, which are often thought to be unique to humans, such as grief and empathy. So if you the study shows that the animals also can feel grief and also can feel empathy. All right. So the acceptance of animal sentience is based on decades, okay, of scientific evidence from the fields of neuroscience, behavioral sciences, and cognitive ethology. Right. So in your next year, which is in the third year, we are going to study about the animal behavior. Okay. So, knowing that many species of animal are sentient, okay, which is we know that the animals can suffer, the animal also can feel, all right. So, it also we knowing that a species can suffer help us to ask careful, ethical, and scientific questions about how human can care for the animals. Okay, so suffering is actually refers to one or more bad feelings continuing for more than a short period. Okay, so this is according to the Broom and Fraser 2007. And also suffering is actually to suffer an animal must be sentient. Okay, to feel suffer the animal must be sentient. Okay, which is the animals can feel. All right. So animal welfare and rights. Okay, so in the point of view of animal welfare, so the animal should be treated humanely. And the proponents, okay, and their support used for human purpose, but with minimal discomfort. Okay, but in the view of animal rights, okay, this group of animal rights, there are things that the animal should not be exploited. So the supporters in the animal rights, they feel that it is ethically, morally, and inherently wrong to use animal for human purposes under any conditions. Which mean, in these groups, in this animal rights group, they think that we can't use animal even though we want to use it as an experiment in a lab. So, okay, in any conditions. Okay, so this is the animal welfare and animal rights. Okay, so as I mentioned previously, so animal welfare, I believe that the animal should be treated humanly, which means it includes the proper housing. Okay, the animal also need to get the proper nutrition. Okay, they also can have the disease preventions and also treatments and responsible care, proper handling, and human euthanasia, okay, which is the act of putting an animal to death or allowing it to die by withholdings. Okay, and the animal welfare also include that the belief that animals can be used for human purposes. Okay, we can use the animals, for example, in the experiments. Okay, but they should be treated so that discomfort is kept to a minimum. All right. So, but in the point of view of animal rights, okay, they believe the animals should not be exploited. Okay, so these peoples are believe the animals should not be used for food, even though they are we cannot eat animals. Okay, and in the point of view of animal rights. Okay, and also the animal should not be used for clothing, entertainment, even though medical research or product testing. Okay, and this include the use of animals in rodeos, also zoos, circuses, and even as a pet. So this is very crucial of belief, all right, in animal rights. And in this group also, they believe the animals should not be used in experiments in which diseases and various therapy methods are studied. Okay, so this in the point of view of different groups of animal, which is animal welfare and also animal rights. Okay, so what is animal welfare? Okay, it's actually a complex concept with three areas of concern. Okay, regarding according to the Fraser ETL 1997, okay, when assessing the animal welfare, which is they have three areas here. The first one is the animal functioning well. Okay, for example, in the good health, the productivity of the animals. Okay, and the other area of concern is actually the animal feeling well, which is the absence of the pain. Okay, when we use the animals in any human purposes. Okay, and the third areas of concern, okay, in the animal welfare is that is the animal able to perform natural or species typically behaviors that are thought to be important to them. Okay, for example, if when we when we cap the animals, okay, is the animal can behave can have the behavior like grazings. Okay, so the three areas of animal welfare and how they can overlap. Okay, so this is the slide that illustrated the three areas of animals welfare. Okay, and how the areas can be overlapped. All right, so any significant compromise in one area, okay, as you can see from here, we have physical and also mentals. Okay, so any significant compromise in one area tend to affect to the other two. Okay, although these may not always be the case. All right, so we can take the examples, okay, of a single hand. All right, regarding these three approaches, okay, when we considering animal welfare. Okay, so for example, if a single hen, okay, one hen is housed, okay, in a wired cage, okay, on who which is they have which is the hen have her own food. Okay, the hen also have her own water, a perch or a nesting box, and also her The hen has an area for dusting, bathing. Her physical functioning is likely to be good. Okay, the hen also have the mental status is likely to be good too. Although she also the hen also sometimes they may feel frustrations because of the social isolations which may occur even if other birds are close by in other cages. Okay, but she also be able to perform important behavior, okay, important natural behavior like nesting before she lays. Okay, however, some people would still have concern for her welfare. Okay, because keeping a chicken or keeping a hen in a cage is not actually natural. Okay, we call it as it's not natural, even though they have or even though they can behave even though they can behave naturally. Okay, because the cages actually impact on other areas of welfare, including the health of the animals. Okay, for example, we are talking about just now, we place a hen in a wired cage, right? So, for example, the wired floor are likely to cause the injuries to the hands. Okay, and if an animal is frustrated, okay, because they are isolated from the other animals, okay, the other individuals. So, if the animals is frustrated, then he or she may self mutilate or perform stereotypical behaviors, okay, which can cause the physical damage. Okay, so in these examples of a single hen, okay, which is placed in a white cage, okay, the chicken's welfare is affected in terms of all the three approaches here, which is the naturalness, okay, physical, and also the mental areas of welfare. All right. So this is actually the three areas when we consider about the animal welfare. Okay. So the definition of animal welfare in the case of physical. Okay, so the earliest definitions of physical, okay, is actually concerned about the physical areas of animal welfare, particularly in connections with how an animal might cope with stress and how the body of the animals respond to the stress physiologically. Okay, and in refers to the Broom 1986. Okay, the welfare of an animal is actually its state as regards its attempts to cope with its environment. Okay, when we consider about the physical. Okay, and in McClone 1993, okay, he also suggests that the animal is in a poor state of welfare only when its physiological systems are disturbed to the point that survival or reproductions are impaired. Okay, so this is the definitions of animal welfare. Okay, in the approaches of physical. All right. So what about mental? Okay, the area of mental. Okay, so the mental is actually neither health nor lack of stress nor fitness is necessary and or sufficient to conclude that an animal has a good welfare, because welfare is actually when refers to the education in 1993. So welfare is actually dependent upon what animals feels. Okay, so, regarding the brooms in 1998 and also killing in TL in 2011, so actually mental is actually when the animals have a feel that have addictive value. Okay, for example, negative. Okay, in the negative aspect, it may escape immediate harm. Okay, while in the positive aspect, it will promote a long-term benefit to the animals, which is animals can stay in situation that promote those feelings. All right. For example, just now we were talking about the single hen, which is placed in the wire cage. Okay, in the positive view, okay, it can promote a long-term benefits. Okay, which is the hen can stay in the feeling of pressure by the wire. All right. So we're talking about the natural behavior. Okay, the areas of natural behavior when we considering the animal welfare. So in the 1990s, okay, there was widespread public concerns about the effects on emails of the intensifications of farming. All right. For examples, in the UK, okay, the government has set up a community of scientists, okay, and other to investigate the matter. So the committee was named after its chairs, which is we call as a Bramble Committee. Okay, Bramble. Okay, so it chairs by Bramble. So it are named by Bramble Committee. Okay, in 1965. Okay, so and also they are issued as a report known as a Bramble Report. Okay, so one of the comment in that report, in the Bramble Report, is that in principle, okay, we disapprove of a degree of confinement, okay, of an animal which necessarily frustrates most of the major activity which make up its natural behavior. Okay, so this is actually one of the comment in the reports, right? And we refer to Rollins 1993. The natural behavior, okay, when we consider about the animal welfare, is not only will welfare mean control of the pain and also control of the suffering, but it is also about the entail nurturings and fulfillment of the animal's nature, which is the Rollins, they are called as the telos. Okay, so telos in here is actually an ultimate object of or aim. All right, so this is the point of view of the natural behavior. Okay, so related to the mental states and aspects of naturalness, okay, is the idea that the animals need to perform certain highly motivated behavior that are typically of their species. Okay, so those animals have developed in their wild ancestors to enable the animals, okay, to enable them to obtain essential resources and therefore to survive, right? So for example, in here we are talking about calf, okay, which is the act of suckling to ingest milk from the mother. All right. So in pre-patural source, the building a secluded nest in which to give a birth. Okay, for example. All right. So and the other things that relate to the mental status of the animals is actually the specific behaviors, which is the animals develop in order to obtain an essential resources. Okay, just now we're talking about the calf, and also the needs to show certain behavior. Okay, so if the domestic environment or handling prevents them from performing this behavior, negative emotions such as frustrations, so the animals can feel suffer, right? So this is the pioneers of animal acts. Okay. So the pioneers of the pioneer of animal rights. Okay. So actually by the Ruth Harrison. Okay. So this Ruth Harrison, they are wrote the animal machines, which is the new factory farming industry, and it's inspired law for care and treatment of chickens, turkeys, pigs, cattle, sheep, and rabbits in 1964. Then Peter Singer, they published The Animal Liberations in 1975. So he considered founder of the modern animal rights movement. Okay, so this is the two pioneers of animal rights. Okay, so if you still remember, when you're talking about the animal rights, is actually okay, is actually refers to the animals that cannot, even though cannot be used in any human purposes. All right. So we have five freedoms for animals. Okay. So the five freedom of animals. The first one is the animals must be freedom from hunger and thirst. The animals also must be freedom from discomfort. The animal also must be freedom from pain, injury, and disease. The fourth one is the animal must be freedom to express normal behavior. All right. And the animals are freedom from fear and distress. So this is the five freedoms for animals. All right. So the five freedoms is actually also we can call as the Bramble's five freedoms. Okay, so the five freedoms were originally developed from a UK government, which is they are reported on livestocks, husbandry in 1965. Okay, by the professor of Roger Bramble. That's why we call the five freedoms is actually the Bramble's five freedoms. Okay, then by the Farm Animal Welfare Councils in July 1979. All right. So we go one by one about the five freedoms. So the five freedom. The first one is the freedom from hunger or thirst, which is by ready access to fresh water, and also the animals are ready access to a diet, which mean to maintain the full health and also the vigor. And the second freedoms is actually the animals must be freedom from discomfort, which means the human need to provide an appropriate environment to the animals, including the shelter and a comfortable resting area. So the third freedoms for animals is actually we're talking about the animals must be freedom from pain, injury or disease. Okay, by preventions or rapid diagnosis and treatments to the animals. Right. So the four freedoms of the five freedoms for animals actually the animals must be freedom to express normal behavior, okay, to express most of their normal behavior, which means the humans must provide the animals sufficient space for them to act normally, all right, and also the human must provide to the animals the proper facilities, okay, and accompany of the animals own kind, right. And the last five freedoms is actually the animals must be freedom from fear and distress, which means the human need to ensure the condition and treatment to the animals which avoid mental suffering. Okay, so this is the five freedoms for animals, the Bramble's five freedom, right? So the march for the animals, okay, the first march is actually in Washington DC, okay, which is a rally by animal rights groups in 1990. Okay, from 15,000 to 24,000 people are marched down in the Pennsylvania Avenue. Okay, so they are group they are grouped together. Okay, and they are bring a sign that state the animals are not for bearing. Okay, fur is dead and animals have rights too. So this is the march for the animals. Okay, in the groups of animal rights. Okay, so now we are moved to the chains of the body or the law regarding the animal rights. Okay, so the first one is the body of liberties. So the first US law enacted to protect the farm animals from cruel treatments. Okay, it passed by the Massachusetts, okay, Bay Colony in 1641. Okay, so the second act or law, okay, regarding the animal right is actually every person who shall maliciously kill, maim or wound any horse, ox or other cattle or sheep, or shall um, maliciously, okay, and cruelly beat or torture such animal shall be guilty of misdemeanor. Okay, they must be guilty of this. They must be guilty of misdemeanor. All right. So this is passed by the New York Legislature in 1826. All right. So then we also have Americans' first humane society. So it's called the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Okay, yeah, this American First Humane Society is actually formed in New York. Okay, to safeguard the disabled horses and mules. Also, to save the horses and mules from abandonment. Okay, so this was founded by Henry Bird in 1866. Okay. Then also we have the Human Slaughter Act. Okay, so these acts are designed to provide the humane care and treatment for animals traveling to slaughter, and it originally passed in 1958. and they have gone through the amendment in 1970s. Okay. Then we also have the Act, the other Act of Animal Rights, which is Laboratory Animal Welfare Act, or we call as the AWA. So it initial the initial version is in 1966, okay, which is the regulated dog and cats dealers, and also lab using the dogs, cats, hamsters, guinea pigs, rabbit, and primates. And also this AWA are going to have the first amendment in 1970. Then they will have the second, go through the second amendment in 1985, which is clarified as human care, which is defined the painful practice set up by Animal Welfare Information Center. Okay, so we also have the other act or law, okay, regarding the animal rights, which is Food, Agriculture, Conservation and Trade Act. So these Food, Agriculture, Conservation and Trade Acts are included two provisions. Okay, the provisions is in the 1990, which is the first one is injunctive relief, and the second one is the pet protection. So in the injunctive relief is actually authorized Secretary of Agriculture to stop the licensed entity from violating the AWA, okay, from violating the Laboratory Animal Welfare Act, okay, while charges are pending, all right. And the second provisions, okay, is actually the pet protection, which is mandated the secretary to issue the additional regulation pertaining to random source dogs and cats. Okay. So the U.S. Department of Agriculture, okay. So this U.S. Department of Agriculture is develops and implements regulations to support the AWA, to support the Laboratory Animal Welfare Act. Okay, so they set the minimum standards for care and handling. They also set for the housing, feeding, sanitation, ventilation, shelter from extreme weather, wet care, and also species aspirations. Okay, they set the minimum standard, and they are currently exclude the birds and lab rats, okay, and mice, okay, and also they are require licensing of animal dealers, and also they are also require license for the exhibitors and also operators of animal auctions. Okay, so they need to have the license. And the other act, okay, that regarding the animals is actually the Host Protection Act. So these host protection acts, okay, they are purposely to protect the horses, okay, and regulates the host show business, because there is an issue, okay, previously, because they have the showing or sale of horse with gait altered, okay, by inducing the leg pain to the horses. Okay, so that is why they are formed the Host Protection Act, and it passed in 1970, and they also go through the amendment in 1976. All right. So the other one is actually Animal Liberation Front. So it's actually the animal rights group, okay, from the animal rights group. So however, it acted through the violences, okay. For example, the violence that the animal rights groups have been done is actually the damage of Origin State University labs in 1986. Also, this group also set fire to the University of California at Davis Lab, and also these groups also struck Texas Tech research facilities in 1989. Okay, even though they have formed the animal liberation fronts, okay, these animal groups, they are acted through violences. Okay, so the Animal Enterprise Protection Act, okay, the other act is the Animal Enterprise Protection Act. So this Animal Enterprise Protection Act is actually to protect the facilities like farms, also to protect the facilities like zoos, aquariums, circuses, rodeos, fairs, and also auctions. Okay, and this act formed in the 1992, and it imposed jail time for damaging an animal's enterprise or injuring or killing a person during animal enterprise attack. Okay, so this Animal Enterprise Protection Act also goes through the amendment, which proposed to protect parties like loggers, miners, fishermen, farmers, and so trappers. Okay, so after all the debates, okay, after they have formed the act and also actions, laws, okay, that taken regarding the animals, okay, so several questions are arise. Okay, there are still several questions are arise, right? So the first one is, do animals have rights? Okay, so in the point of view of a human, do animals have rights? Okay, so in the point of view of animal right activists, okay, so the terms in the animal rights activists, they used to believe that any use of animals by human reflects a bias that humans are superior to animals. Okay, and animal rights activists also believe that the animals have the same rights as humans, okay, and contend that one can ignore the rights of animals while advocating the rights of humans, because in this point of view of this group of animal rights, they think that humans are animals, right? And also in the point of view of animal rights activists, they also talk about the speciesism. Okay, the speciesism in here, okay, the speciesism in here, it means the assumptions of human superiority leading to the exploitations of animals. Okay, but in the point of view of animal welfare supporters, right? So it stands that animals should be treated humanly without cruelty. Okay, the animal should be treated humanly without cruelty. Okay, which means the animal should have a proper housing. Okay, the animal also should have the proper management, and also the animal also should have enough nutrition. Okay, and also this is prevention and treatment. Okay, just now we're talking about the responsible care and handling. Okay, so animal welfare activists also believe that the animals can be used in research. Okay, is actually opposite to the animal rights activists. Okay, in this animal welfare activists, they believe the animal can be used in research as long as all the measures are taken to ensure that the animals are cared for humanly, which is the animal should receive a proper care when we want to use the animal as in a research. Okay, when alternatives are unavailable. All right. So the other questions that arise. Okay, should animals be used as a food? Okay, so in the point of view of animal rights, so this group of activists, they argue that modern farming is inhuman and that eating meat is unhealthy. All right. So they contend that modern farming is controlled by a large of corporations that care only about profit and not care about welfare of animals. Okay, because they think that large corporations also, only care about the profits. Okay, so this is in the point of view of right activists. And in the point of view of farmers, okay, which mean the farmers that have led the way in the animal welfare, so it has always been in their best interest to care for animal humanly and to see that they are well fed and free of disease. So this is the point of view of farmers. All right. So, for example, in US, okay, we are talking about the farming in the US. So, in farming in US, they are not controlled by large corporations. Okay, in that point of view, they have 2.2 million farms in US, which is 97% of that are family owned and operated. Okay, only from 2.2 million, only 7,000 are non-family control corporations. Okay, and also in the point of view of farmers, okay, in the point of view of the animal welfare activists, there's no study that substantiate that a vegetarian diet, okay, which is the human that not eat animals as food, okay, is actually healthier than a diet which is include the meat, milk, and also eggs. All right. And in the point of view of the farmers also, the animal also can have the intensive operations and also they will have the confinement system. Okay. So the other questions that arise, okay, is actually should animals should the experiments use animals? Alright, after the debates, after the law and acts, okay, had been taken, so they also have a question arise that should experiments use animals? Okay, so in the point of view of animal rights activists, they believe that the animal experimentation is unethical and unnecessary. That other alternative to animal experimentations, okay, should be used. All right, and also they think that the use of animals in an experiments, okay, it will go to the misleading test and also could danger the human health. All right. So in the point of view of research supporters, okay, which is the animal welfare, okay, the lack of research animal would limit or stop biomedical research or stop the medical advance. Okay, and the number of animal used in experiments, in testings, okay, are also declining. And also, they also think that the animals have contributed significantly to human health and well-being. Okay, so the animals, in the point of view of the research supporter, the animal welfare activists, the animals are used in the three areas of experimentations. Okay, the first one is actually research in biomedical, okay, biomedical research, and also the behavior sciences. The second area is testing of product for their safety. And the third one is actually education where animals are used for demonstrations and dissections. Okay, when we want to study about the, for example, the organ systems, okay, so we will use animals, okay, for dissect. We don't use humans, all right, we use animal for dissections, all right. So that is the use of the areas use of animals of experimentation. Okay, so the last questions, okay, the last question that arise is actually should hunting and trapping be allowed? Okay, should hunting and trapping for the animals be allowed? Okay, so in the animal rights activists, okay, they believe that regulated recreational hunting and trapping is inhuman and unnatural. Okay, so they think that hunting and trapping are inhuman and unnatural. Okay, they also believe that the hunters and trappers kill merely to inflict the suffering. Okay, so then the animal which mean they are think that the hunters and trappers are joy of killing. They are feel of joy of killing, right? So the animal rights activists also claim that hunting and trapping does not prevent the overpopulation, that hunting for food is unnecessary, and that hunting should be banned completely. Okay, so this is the point of view of animal rights. Okay, so when we look at the animal welfare activists, okay, point of view, they note that they are the prime revenue sources for preserving of non-endangered wildlife. Okay, which mean the hunters. Okay, they only make up about 7% of our populations. Okay, only little. Okay, and the hunters also have been largely responsible for initiating the wildlife law and their enforcement as well as the establishment of parks and wildlife reserve. Okay, so the hunting programs are designed to harvest only the surplus animals. Okay, because in this animal welfare activists, they believe that the hunters and also the trappers are the one who initiate the wildlife law, and also um, they also have their own enforcement establishment of parks and also wildlife reserve. Okay, because they are on and also in the in the laws also, they are designed only to harvest the surplus animals. Okay, so more than 7,000 groups are involved in the animal protections. Okay, and 400 of these are considered as animal rights group. Okay, and many of the group do not consider themselves as animal rights or animal welfare groups, but are dedicated to the preservation of a specific species of animals and its habitat. Okay, so what group do you belong? Okay, you think about it. All right, so we have end to our second last topic for this semester, which is regarding the animal rights and welfare. Right, so I think that's all for today. If you still have, if you have any questions regarding today's topic, okay, you can WhatsApp me, because today's topic is actually about we are studying about the definitions, we are studying about the act and laws, okay, regarding the animals, okay. So okay, thank you very much. That's all for me. Assalamualaikum.